After I graduated high school, which was longer ago than I really care to mention, my dad took me to the Boundary Waters canoe area in northern Minnesota. There were a lot of memorable experiences in that trip, but one of the most amazing things that we witnessed was a dragonfly hatch. Hundreds of dragonfly nymphs crawled out of the lake one night, shed their exoskeletons, and emerged as the adult dragonflies that we're all familiar with. Now, dragonflies are one of my favorite insects, but I feel like they're one of those things that we mostly just kind of overlook. They don't bite or sting, they don't come into the house, they don't really cause us any inconvenience. So, unless we really get to see one up close, we don't really give them much thought. But all that's about to change because today we're talking about dragonflies and damselflies. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, and this is the Dispatches from the Forest podcast. For a long time, I didn't know that damselflies were a whole separate thing from dragonflies. Now, they are closely related. Both are predatory insects that make up the scientific order Odonata. Within that order, dragonflies are the infraorder Anisoptera, and damselflies are the infraorder Zygoptera, both of which are pretty easy to remember because they sound kind of like helicopter, and they kind of look like little helicopters when they're flying. One of the earliest groups of winged insects to evolve, members of this order have been around for somewhere around 300 million years. Paleozoic giant dragonflies had a body length of 17 inches, 43 centimeters, and a wingspan of up to 28 inches, 71 centimeters, making them the largest insects of all time. And they lived right here in North America. I mean, okay, this giant insect belonged to the extinct order of Mega Anisoptera, also dubbed griffin flies, so they're related to, but not really a part of the modern order of Odonata, but they have one of the most complete fossil records dating back 319 million years. And man, would I love to see a dragonfly with a 2.5 foot wingspan. Although it does beg the question of what they preyed on. If they were around today, they'd basically be birds of prey, but back then mammals hadn't really come out to play, so the griffin flies must have been preying on other, very large insects. Now, as you might expect, since they've been around so long, they're widely distributed. Dragonflies and damselflies are found on every continent except Antarctica. Although that said, species of damselflies tend to be a little more restricted in their ranges, and dragonflies tend to be more widely distributed. But wait, I still haven't told you the difference between dragonflies and damselflies, so let's get to that. Dragonflies and damselflies are very similar. They have a very similar body plan. Large compound eyes on their heads, 4 wings held horizontally when flying, and a long, slender abdomen with 10 segments. Both also have small antennae on their head, which don't have an olfactory function like a lot of other insects, but may serve to measure airspeed. And fun fact, they can't walk. Their legs are used primarily for perching, but also for catching prey and holding prey and cleaning their eyes and holding on to their mates. The differences between them are damselflies are the ones that are smaller and their bodies are slimmer than that of dragonflies. The eyes of damselflies are smaller and more widely separated than those of dragonflies, and when resting, dragonflies hold their wings horizontally, while damselflies hold their wings either vertically or next to their bodies. But otherwise, in terms of their behavior and their life cycle, both dragonflies and damselflies are very, very similar. Dragonflies and damselflies occupy a variety of habitats, but different species may have different habitat requirements. Some species prefer flowing water, others prefer standing water. Some species live in temporary pools and are capable of tolerating changes in water levels, desiccation, and a variation in temperature that goes along with that. Adults may require specific waterside plants for perches or specific submerged or floating plants for laying eggs on. The European common blue damselfly can occur at high densities in acidic waters where fish are absent, such as bog pools. But the common denominator here is that they need fresh water in some form, and their dependence on freshwater habitats makes them very vulnerable from damage to wetlands through drainage for agriculture or urban development. Now, dragonfly vision is thought to be like slow motion for humans. Dragonflies see faster than we do, around 200 images per second, about twice as fast. And a dragonfly can see 360 degrees, plus nearly 80% of its brain is dedicated to sight. Now, dragonflies and damselflies are, of course, incredible flyers. They're fast and agile, capable of highly accurate aerial ambushes, and even migrating across oceans. Large species of dragonfly have a maximum speed of 22 to 34 miles an hour, 36 to 54 kilometers an hour, and an average cruising speed of about 10 miles an hour, 16 kilometers an hour. Essentially, dragonflies can travel 100 body lengths per second in forward flight and 3 body lengths per second going backwards. And all that speed and agility helps them hunt. Adult dragonflies hunt quote unquote on the wing, using their exceptionally acute eyesight and strong, agile flight. Damselflies hunt a little differently. They prefer to hover among grasses and low vegetation, picking prey off stems and leaves. Damselflies are also known to hunt spiders, hovering near an orb web and plucking the spider or its entangled prey from the web. But both damselflies and dragonflies are almost exclusively carnivorous, eating a wide variety of insects ranging from small midges and mosquitoes to butterflies, moths, and other damselflies and dragonflies. A large prey item is subdued by being bitten on the head, after which the dragonfly may grasp its legs and carry it to a perch. Once there, the wings are discarded and the prey ingested, usually head first. A dragonfly may consume as much as a fifth of its body weight per day, and if I did that, I'd be eating over 30 pounds or 13.5 kilograms of food every single day. Now, mating in dragonflies is a complex, precisely choreographed process. First things first, the male has to attract the female to his territory, which means he's continually driving off rival males. When he's ready to mate, he transfers a packet of sperm from his primary genital opening, located on segment 9 near the end of his abdomen, to his secondary genitalia, located on segments 2 or 3 near the base of his abdomen. So many genitalia. The male then grasps the female by his head with his claspers that are located at the end of his abdomen, and the structure of these claspers varies between species, so it's probably meant to help prevent interspecific mating. The pair then flies in tandem with the male in front, typically perching on a twig or plant stem. Next, the female curls her abdomen downward and forward under her body to pick up the sperm from the male's secondary genitalia, while the male uses those tail claspers to continue gripping the female behind her head. And this distinctive posture is known as the heart or the wheel. But after all that, it doesn't mean that the female's eggs have been fertilized. Nay, nay, my friend. The sperm remains viable for up to 12 days, depending on the species, and the female can fertilize her eggs at any time with the sperm from any male that she's mated with. So, males use their penis and associated genital structures to compress or scrape out sperm from previous matings. And this activity actually takes up most of the time that a copulating pair spends in that heart posture. Isn't that just the most romantic thing you've ever heard? Nothing says love like scraping out your rival's sperm. Egg laying or ovipositing involves not only the female darting over floating or waterside vegetation to deposit eggs in a suitable substrate, but also the male hovering above her or continuing to clasp her and flying in tandem. This behavior following the transfer of sperm is called mate guarding. The guarding male is attempting to increase the probability that it's his sperm fertilizing the eggs. But this mate guarding has other advantages. Flying in tandem means that it takes less effort for the female to fly, and therefore she can spend more energy on egg laying. Also, when the female submerges to deposit eggs, the male is there to help pull her out. Now, all damselflies lay their eggs inside plant tissue, some even underwater, and those that lay eggs underwater can submerge themselves for up to 30 minutes at a time, climbing along the stems of aquatic plants and laying eggs at intervals. With dragonflies, egg laying takes two different forms depending on the species. The females in some families have a sharp edged ovipositor that they use to slit open a stem or leaf of a plant on or near the water, and then push her eggs inside. In other families, the female lays eggs by tapping the surface of the water repeatedly with her abdomen, shaking the eggs out as she flies along, or by placing them on vegetation. In a few species, the eggs are laid on emergent plants above the water, and development is delayed until these plants have withered and become immersed. Dragonflies and damselflies don't have a pupal stage, and they undergo an incomplete metamorphosis with a series of nymphal stages, molting anywhere from 6 to 15 times before the adult eventually emerges. Most of a dragonfly's life, in fact, is spent as a nymph, also called a naiad, underwater. Dragonfly naiads breathe through gills on their rectum and can rapidly propel themselves by suddenly expelling water through the anus. You heard that right. They swim by shooting a jet of water out of their butts. Damselfly naiads have three large external fin like gills on the tip of their abdomen, which they also use for swimming in the same way that a fish uses its tail. And if they weren't so small, dragonfly and damselfly naiads would be straight out of a horror movie. First of all, they're voracious predators, eating almost any living thing that's smaller than they are. To hunt, the naiad extends its hinged labium, which is a toothed mouth part like a giant lower jaw, sometimes called a mask because it's normally folded and held in front of their face. But this labium can extend forward and retract rapidly to catch prey like mosquito larvae and other insect larvae, tadpoles, and small fish. Now, the nymph stage of the dragonfly lasts up to 5 years in large species, and between 2 months and 3 years in smaller species. When the naiad is ready to metamorph into an adult, it stops feeding and makes its way to the surface, generally at night. It remains stationary with its head out of the water while its respiration system adapts to breathing air. Then it climbs up a reed or other emergent plant or rock to molt. Anchoring itself firmly in a vertical position with its claws, its exoskeleton splits at a weak spot right behind its head. The adult dragonfly extracts itself from its nymph exoskeleton, arching backwards until all but the tip of its abdomen is free, and then allows its exoskeleton to harden. Then, curling back upwards, it completes its emergence, swallowing air, which plumps out its body, and pumping hemolymph, which is the insect version of blood, into its wings, making them expand to their full extent. Most damselflies emerge in daytime, and in cool conditions, this process can take several hours. On a hot day, though, the cuticle hardens quickly, and the adult can be flying away within 30 minutes. Dragonflies in temperate areas can be categorized into two groups, an early group and a later group. In any given area, individuals of a particular spring species emerge within a few days of each other. This is probably the type of emergence that I witnessed as a teenager in the Boundary Waters. These early emergers may suddenly be very common in the spring and disappear just a few weeks later, not to be seen again until the following year. By contrast, a summer species emerges over a period of weeks or even months later in the year. They may be seen on the wing for several months, but this may represent a whole series of individuals, with new adults hatching out as earlier ones complete their lifespans. Because here's the thing, when dragonflies emerge as adults, when we see them flying around, that is the end of their life cycle. That adult stage might be as long as 10 weeks, but most species have an adult lifespan of 5 weeks or less, and some survive for just a few days. Now, the dragonflies of North America and Europe have been the subject of a lot of research, but the majority of dragonfly and damselfly species live in tropical areas and haven't been studied very much at all. With the destruction of rainforest habitats, many of these species might be in danger of becoming extinct before they've even been named. The biggest cause of decline, unsurprisingly, is forest clearing and the consequent drying up of streams and pools, or the clogging of these streams and pools with silt. The damming of rivers for hydroelectric projects, along with the drainage of low lying land, has reduced suitable habitat, as has pollution and the introduction of invasive species. Habitat degradation has reduced dragonfly populations across the world. Dragonflies and damselflies are also attracted to shiny surfaces that produce polarization, which they can mistake for water. And they've been known to aggregate close to polished gravestones, solar panels, cars, and other structures on which they may attempt to lay eggs. These can have a local impact on dragonfly populations, so ways of reducing the attractiveness of structures like these is being studied currently. And that, my feral friends, is where we're going to end this episode. Thank you as always for listening. If you'd like to support the podcast, here's how you can do that. Become a patron. Subscriptions start at just $5 a month, and with 3 paid months, you get free Dispatches from the Forest merch. Find all the details at patreon.com/dispatches from the forest. Donate through either PayPal or Venmo using my email address, dispatchesfromtheforest@gmail.com. Also, how you can contact me if you have a question, a comment, or a request for a future episode. You can also donate using the Cash App and the hashtag #ForestNerd. You're welcome to send a check. Just message me for my mailing address. And of course, there's Dispatches from the Forest merch for sale. Go check out the merch store at cafepress.com/shop/dispatches from the forest. Click on products, see everything that we have to offer. Finally, you can follow Dispatches from the Forest on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, reminding you to go outside and get dirty. Dispatches from the Forest recognizes that the lands where we live, work, and recreate are the traditional homelands of the Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho people. We understand that this land holds immense significance for the original stewards, native nations, and peoples of this region. The Dispatches from the Forest podcast is a production of Dispatches from the Forest and may not be used or rebroadcast whole or in part without express written permission.